Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my Portulacaria afra forest or mini jades. These trees are designed to look like the giant African Baobab tree, and today I'm going to give them a prune. Here is a look at the forest. I had it cool in the basement for the entire winter. I had a dedicated grow light above it, but it stayed around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius for the entire winter. So it basically just stayed dormant. It put on a little bit of growth when it warmed up, but not much. And then when I brought it outside here in the greenhouse, it just started exploding with new growth. And it looks really healthy. The leaves are a nice dark green color, which shows it's getting, good light, enough water and fertilizer to keep the trees happy. I found keeping my Portulacaria afra trees cool over the winter really keeps them healthy. In the winter they don't have any problems, they just sit there kind of dormant, and then in spring they wake up with a big flush of growth. And I think it's important that they have that cool rest period and then the summer outdoors of good growing. The main tree in this forest is over 20 years old now, and it was started from a small cutting. And what I generally do is I let them grow really bushy over the summer. Then I prune them back fairly hard to keep them compact. The next summer I let them grow again, prune it back hard, and slowly over the years I built up a nice thick trunk and kept the trees quite short and compact. I've been doing this clip and grow on these trees for over 20 years, and the thickness of the trunk is looking quite nice. It's looking more like an African Baobab tree. You can never grow the trunk too thick on them, that's for sure, but I think I'm quite happy with the size of the trunk now. So I was thinking this year, instead of letting the tree grow long and pruning it back and just keep repeating that cycle, that I would start more into the refinement of the branches themselves, trying to get that baobab character to the entire structure of the tree. In order to create perspective in this planting, to make it look bigger than it is, I'm training the trees in the back, the smaller trees, to look like miniature replicas of the larger trees out front. In order to create a convincing kind of miniature replica of a baobab tree, I'm always looking at pictures of baobabs online. I download them into a file folder and review them, especially when I'm going to prune the tree up. I study the structure of baobabs and look what features make a baobab tree look like a mature baobab. So that's something I do regularly. And let's have a look at some pictures of baobabs now, and I'll show you some features of the structure and proportions, and we'll just kind of do a review of what makes a baobab tree look like a baobab. Here's a look at the largest tree in this forest, and I've been using a lot of different techniques to make this look like a baobab tree, and one of them is scarring the trunk. I scar it with the scissors, putting I guess grooves in the trunk, and it heals over, and you lose that ringed appearance that the Portulacaria afra has. So eventually, this will smooth out and it'll look more like the trunk of a baobab tree. One of my objectives today is to get the height of the tree down. If I let this tree grow, taller, it makes the trunk look skinnier. So the shorter the tree is, the more massive the trunk looks.
And I don't want these trees to grow into giant trees. I want to keep them small and miniature if possible. There's a lot of new branches in the interior here that need cleaning up so they're not crisscrossing. So I've really got to, look at the branches of a baobab tree and try and get my branches to look like that. One of the features of a baobab tree is that the branches have a lot of taper to them. They start off really thick and they taper to very fine quite quickly on the tree. So there's a lot of taper in the branches. The branches are always kind of horizontal too. They call it the upside down tree because the top of the tree looks like a root system on a regular tree. It's kind of reaching up and you have sort of more of a flatter top, and the branches go more horizontal, and as I said, they're very thick at the base and they taper quickly. So I have one branch back here that I've been working on for a lot of years that is quite highly tapered from thick at the base to very thin out at the tips, and I want to get that look in more of my branches. So it'll just be a matter of continuing the clip and grow on them, and over the years they'll just mature and start looking better and better. I'm going to begin the pruning on the tree now. I've just reviewed pictures of the baobabs, so to get the branch structure in mind. So it's basically, the style is like a flattened broom style. And the branches, as I said, start very thick and they taper. So here I go. So I'm just going to take it one branch at a time. And I think I'm going to remove this vertical growth off this one. Keeping it more horizontal. Same with this branch here. I'll remove the vertical growth. Kind of, flattening the broom style structure out. There's a branch that's growing up here, and I said I want taper in the branches, so I've got some leaves right back here on the branch, so I could prune the entire top off the branch. And again, I'll lose ramification, but I'll gain taper in the long term. So I could prune it back to this set of leaves or the next set. They're both going good directions. The next set is probably the better direction. So maybe I'll start there. So here I go, pruning that entire tip off. Like that. See what happens in that area. There's some vertical growth on this branch back here I can take off. And I do want some vertical growth. They generally have, some thick vertical trunks on the baobab. But these lower branches, I want them kind of spreading and more horizontal. Now there was a trunk line here that was growing up, and I hard pruned it off, and the branches grew in kind of on the back instead of out front, which is not quite so good or desirable. But again, you work with what you get. So I have an outward facing leaf here. Just seeing if that I could prune back to, hard prune it back, and I think I will. I think I'll go back to here. Like that. It's really opening the structure up. The other one that's growing up the middle, I think is okay as a vertical branch. There is some branches coming off of it that are kind of pointing back in towards the center of the tree, so I'm going to prune this one off. Right up the middle there. And then I want to prune these branches back more compact, so I'll take it back to here and to here. And I could even take it further. I'd lose this division here, but I could take it back further, and I think I will. Really shortening it back. Now this branch up front here, it's an outward branch. I don't think I want this vertical part on it. I'll prune that back short, and I may remove that branch entirely. There's one growing here. I could take it right back here, and I will, making it very compact. This lowest branch here, I've got a shoot growing inwards here. I'm going to remove. I think everything else is okay on that branch. The one coming off the side here, it's kind of crossing the trunk line behind it. If I keep it, you know, I can prune it off very short here, like to here. And that'll do for now. And then I can decide later on if I want to prune the rest of it off. There's a branch growing into the center of the tree off of this stump here. I'm going to remove that. I don't want a branch on the interior there. So you can see I've got this thick trunk on the right hand side and not so thick on the left hand side. I think I was going to let this side grow more to thicken it up, but I'm going to try and do it slowly. I'm not so happy with this vertical thick part here, so that may come off. I'll have to think about that. Off of this branch back here, I have a thick trunk growing up. I'm going to prune it back, you know, for taper. There's a part growing up here. Well, actually, well, I'll just prune it back, the tips, and then decide what I want to do with the structure there, if I want to remove it, or I think I probably do. I have, you know, this branch coming out the front in a good direction, and this one's kind of growing vertical. It looks a little awkward. So I could prune that off. I think I'll reduce it right back to here. Big cut, taking that off. That shortens that back branch quite a bit. And again, you know, I'm always looking for taper in the branches. There's a new branch coming up here. I think I'll prune it right back to there. This one I can prune right back to, yeah, I think I'll go right back to there. Now it's getting a little vertical, this part. I could prune it back quite hard. I'm not sure I want to, but well, we'll just take the tips off and have a look at it. See if it's too tall and maybe needs further reducing. I have a feeling it will, but we'll see at the end. There's a branch growing here I can prune back. One here I can prune back. This one can get pruned back. And I could prune this one back to here, and I will. Again, you know, looking for taper. Take this tip off. Take this one back. So quite a hard pruning I'm giving it today. There's one branch growing back here that I'm going to take off totally. It's growing back across all the other branches. I want to give these branches room to grow, so it can get pruned off. I have a feeling this whole top of that branch is going to come off. So let me deal with this trunk line here now. It's kind of vertical, isn't it? It's, if I took it off, I don't know. Tough call. I'll prune it back and then we'll make that decision. If you just prune the tips off these branches, you get very, very dense growth. It'll fill in like totally. Okay, there's a branch coming off here that goes back in towards the center of the tree. I'm going to remove that. Opening it up a bit. I'm just stepping back, having a look at it. Yeah, it is a bit of a problem. I like this side of the tree. I like this side of the tree, but the two don't match. On this branch, I have a very thick stump growing out the back of it that, you know, comes out here. I could take that whole thick stump off, but, you know, it is good taper in that branch, which is one of the reasons I kept it. Well, let's prune this branch up here. I'm going to at least prune it back. Tip off there. I can take these long tips off, prune them back. Just pruning off some of the long shoots here, getting it more compact so I can look at the styling of the tree. Okay, so that's pretty well got all the new growth pruned back now. Now let me look at the style of it. So there's an overall look at the tree. I've definitely got to bring this height down. So I do have, you know, leaves down lower, a branch down here, so I could take the whole top off, and I will. So here I go. I'm just wondering about this big thick part here, whether to take it off. It's quite typical for baobabs to have a thick branch that comes off to the side like this. But I'm worried that this one's just going to get worse and worse as it thickens up. It is kind of nice as an apex for that branch. Well, let me prune this back part back a bit more. And I think this back branch here needs pruning back quite severely. I'll just take the whole top off it, like that. Quite a dilemma, this big thick branch here. It follows the rules from thick to thin, which is good. You know, maybe as these grow and mature, it'll kind of blend in more. I hate taking it off, and I said that last time I was pruning it, that I just, yeah, I think it's got to stay on. I could maybe reduce these branches back a bit. Kind of keep them under control. Well, I think I'm going to leave this tree as it is for now. There may be a little more cleanup work at the back there to do. But I'll prune up the other trees using a similar strategy. And then we'll come back and have a look at it and just see how everything's doing. And I think I'll take the end off here. So it could be short more. It could be short more. I finished pruning up this tree on the right hand side here, so you can see it compared to one that hasn't been pruned. You can see the structure more. The structure's sorted out, and I look at the trees from all angles above, the front view, and rotate it around. You want your branch structure similar, to a typical tree, bifurcating. You don't want your directions going too far off the radial pattern of the tree. So I think that tree's looking good. I'll go on to this one now. Prune it back. I've also created a bit of space between these two trees. And once I prune this one, there'll be a little more space. I'm thinking of removing that entire trunk here. I will. It'll make the tree look more miniature, like it's way in the distance. I think that's what I'll do. Okay, big cut coming up. Just like that. I'll just clean that up a bit. It's helped to create some good taper in the tree. So yeah, that looks much better. It looks like it's in the distance more. Okay, I think that's got that tree nice and compact. It's looking good. So I've got one more tree to go. This one over here. Here is a look at the forest from the distance. They certainly got a pruning today. So I think this branch is looking a little long here. I'm going to prune it back. Where to is the... Yeah, I've got to match the style of the trees. I don't want like one tree to be wide and spreading and the other one more compact. And I think this one's just a little too wide and spreading. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I think everything's in order. It's ready to grow again. I think, the main tree, as this section thickens up, it'll kind of match this side better. That'll come. There's lots of vigor on this side. And I'll just keep this side pruned quite tightly. I could take that one branch back a bit further. I have some leaves back on the branch. I could remove that whole tip. Here I go. Big cut. And I think I'll take the top off this one also. Just to kind of reduce the vigor in this section a bit more. Let the other side catch up a bit. Okay, well, I think that's it. I think it's pruned up. That was quite a pruning. Fairly hard structural pruning. But I think, you'll see in 2 or 3 weeks that the canopies will have filled in again. They're pretty fast growers. Okay, I noticed it's quite dry, the soil. It needs a good watering, so I'm going to do that next. Here is a look at what I've pruned off the tree today. So, a lot. And there's some fairly thick branches that came off. So a lot of pruning, and from above you can see it's quite sparse looking. But as I said, it'll grow in very quickly and start to look full once again. Before I water the tree, I'm going to give it a spray with soap and water. I didn't notice any insects on it, but I did notice there were some old scale blisters on the odd branch. So just to be sure, I'm going to clean it up with soap and water. Just give it a spray down. Because it was kept cool over the winter, you know, there could be insects on the trees that are dormant in the winter, and then when you bring it up into the greenhouse here, all the insects become active and you can get outbreaks that happen quite quickly. So it's a good idea to spray your trees every now and then, like you know, even once a week. Okay, so that's good. And don't use any oil-based products on your Portulacaria afras because it'll just kill the leaves. Soap and water is quite safe on them, as long as you don't overdo the concentration of soap. And so I'll let that sit for a bit, and then I'll give the planting a thorough watering and rinse all the soap off. Okay, here I go rinsing the forest off. And I always use rainwater. Okay, so the next step is I want to get rid of all the excess water in the pot. So I've got to tilt it up and drain it thoroughly. So you can see all the excess water is draining out of the pot now. So I'll leave it like that for about 10 minutes. And that makes sure that, you know, the soil is thoroughly watered, and then you remove as much water as you can, and that keeps it on the dry side, which is good for succulents, to give them a thorough deep water, drain as much water as you can out of the pot, and then let the planting dry out once again, and just keep repeating that watering technique.
I've been working away on the forest and it's getting dark out now, so I finished up just in time. I'll give you one last look at the forest, and hopefully the next update you'll see it all filled in and nice and green once again. The Portulacaria afra in nature doesn't really have a form. It's called the elephant bush, so it grows more as a bush. So trying to get them to look like baobab trees it's been quite a challenge, and it's also been very fun. I've enjoyed working on this forest from, you know, a young cutting to something that's starting to look mature. As always, it has a long way to go still before it's, you know, a mature, refined forest, but hopefully it'll get there someday. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.